Hello. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Are we good? Are we going? Just give me a little bit of feedback in the chat if you can see me and hear me, please. And then we can get on with this show, I guess. Should I do the hello and welcome back? If you're new here, my name's Andy Fellows and I make videos on cult skepticism and making sense of life after the new age. If you're interested in that kind of thing and you want to hear more from me, then why not subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell thing so you get notified anytime I upload a video. That's probably the smoothest I've done that. Like, it never comes out that smooth when I'm actually recording a video. There we go. How are we doing today? Welcome to this little Q&A / 4K celebration. Cool, you can see me and hear me. Fantastic. Yeah, this is a Q&A. This is also a little celebration for having hit 4,000 subscribers on the channel, which is exciting. That happened a little while ago. That happened like a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, just kind of was trying to find the right time to do this, and we've things have been a bit up in the air this week, so it kind of just made sense to do this week. So hello, welcome, and thank you for being here. And I suppose without further ado, let's get on and answer some questions. I had a bunch of questions coming through. Thank you, Rogue Nerd, for the congratulations on that. Before I jump into questions, actually, let me just say, if you have any questions you want me to answer, just about anything, like whatever, whether it's stuff to do with the channel, whether it's, sort of stuff I've talked about on the channel once or twice that you want to hear more from me on, or whatever, anything like that, then stick your questions in the live chat as we're going through. I'll put them on the screen for anybody watching back later, and I'll answer them then and there. And in the meantime, I will answer questions that people have sent through on Twitter and Facebook. So yeah, thank you again for being here. I suppose let's jump into this. Welcome anybody that's joining as I'm sort of looking away from the chat. So the first question I've got is, how does your current experience compare with what you'd hoped for around this time last year? Are you proud of yourself and the community that's building around you? How does helping others help you with your own growth? Do you realize how much you mean to us? So how does my current experience as a YouTuber compare with what I'd hoped for around this time last year? Hey Sarah, welcome. I'm glad you could make it. I think this time last year, I mean, what time is it this year for a start? August. So I was probably a month and a half into coming back to YouTube this time last year. And I think, I'm not sure on the exact timeline, but I have a vague memory of just sitting waiting for one of my videos to hit 300 views, which most of my videos go over now, thankfully, after been doing this for a year. And I remember I was focused on different things to what I'm focused on now. Now I'm interested in making sure that I'm really proud of my content and I'm really happy with what I'm putting out, and that I'm, I think one thing that I try to bear in mind, which is something I picked up from Prophet of Zod, is to sort of try to leave people with something new to think about, something that they maybe hadn't thought before on the thing that I'm talking about. Because, I'm not going to be the only one talking about everything that I'm talking about, but I try to give something, something to think about with each of the things that I do talk about. And compared to this time last year when I was making stuff, I was thinking about, I think I was nervous because I was starting to talk about Teal and stuff, and I think I'd probably started to get a bit of backlash by this point, so it was a bit nerve-wracking in that sense. Yeah, and then I was just sort of thinking about, is this worth doing? Is this gonna go somewhere? And very quickly I started to feel like it was worth doing, and I was enjoying it, and I did want it to go somewhere. So I started to learn more and sort of put my time and energy in that way into learning more and how to do these things. So how things have, how where I am now compared to where I thought I'd be. I hoped I would be able to do this and grow an audience. And in that sense, I feel like I tick that box in a way. You know, the audience is growing. You guys are here, for which I'm very grateful. Hey, Sazkaz, is that how I'm pronouncing that? Sazkaz, welcome, Sazkaz. Thanks for joining. Yeah, so in that sense, I'm very grateful and I'm very happy about where we are. You know, yeah, that's the answer to that one. What was the other? Are you proud of yourself in the community? Yeah, I'm really happy to see the community that's built. You know, the people that I see coming back time and time again seem to be really lovely people, intelligent people, people who, you know, I feel like I have certain things in common with. We share in, I would say, a decent chunk of how we see the world. You know, the people that I tend to see coming around quite a lot, which is nice to see. And you know, in terms of people that gather around an interest, whether that's videos or movies or whatever, I think for the people making those videos, movies, whatever, the best thing is to see lovely people and not to see sort of vitriolic things around them. So I'm really grateful for the sort of the general atmosphere that tends to pervade around the videos. So, and that's down to you. Thank you for just being great people. You're great people, great people. So how does helping others help you with your own growth? I mean, it's a weird thing, that question, because I don't know. I don't necessarily set out to help others in such explicit terms. My interest is creating resources. Oh, not that there. My interest is creating resources for people who are in a position that I was in at one point. You know, if it helps, great, and I'm glad that it does. But yeah, I see Mark's bringing messages from Marie there about who my favorite patron is, and I refuse to pick favorites. We'll not do this. I'm not going to play that game. But I'm grateful for any and all patrons that do support the channel. By the way, I don't know if Nightbot is going to be sending links out throughout this this live. It should be, and within those links, if it's not in the description, as they always are, but like you know, Patreon, Twitter, and all those kinds of things, those links will be hopefully coming out throughout the chat through Nightbot sending it out, and if not, then it will be in the description below. So if you are enjoying the content I'm making, and you do you know, get something from it, and you want to give something back, then I'm always grateful for anybody that wants to support the channel through Patreon. It means a lot. And yeah, I've been sort of wrestling with YouTube a little bit lately, trying to keep the channel monetized because of some verification things, being based in Mexico and the postal service not being too reliable. It's sort of been a bit of a spanner in the works in that regard. So if you do want to support the channel and you're thinking, you know, sitting through the advertisements is helping, I'm very grateful for that. But at this point, I'm not getting any proceeds from any advertising or anything on the channel. So if you do want to help, then the best way to do that is Patreon. Sazka, I was wondering if you'd ever make a Discord. I do have a Discord server. It's in the description. I'm there sometimes. I sort of drop in on occasion and try and reply to people. But yeah, it's one of those places that, because I'm sort of focused more on Twitter myself, it's there, and I want it to be there for people that would rather use Discord to connect with me or to connect with each other who are interested in similar things. But the places that I am, most are Twitter and the Facebook group, the Post-Cult Debrief Facebook group. But yeah, go ahead, join the Discord. It's in the description. Yeah, so let's move on to another question. What do we have? Do you realize how much you mean to us? In you saying that, I assume some amount. Do you have any overarching goals for the channel? Projects up your sleeve? Have you changed since starting creating your new kind of videos? If yes, how? Are you managing well? So there's a lot of questions. We'll start with one. Do you have any overarching goals for the channel? I think for me, Oh, hi, Ivan, welcome. I know I'm talking to you. Thanks for joining. Yeah, do I have any overarching goals for the channel? My intention really with the channel, as I sort of mentioned before, is just to create resources for people who are where I was. That's kind of my intention. Like, I want to make stuff that people will hear and go, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, although I did see yesterday on Twitter, Philosophy Tube tweeted something about making videos which are really just elaborate shit posts. I mean, in a way, that's my whole channel, but like, that's not ever really been my intention. Can we hear you try an American accent, but like a really bad one? Are there good ones? Yeah, well, now you put me on the spot. No, but at some point I'll do it, and you'll have to just listen out, and I'll, catch you off guard. Do I have any overarching goals for the channel? Really, it's to sort of, I feel like, start conversations that people aren't having. Really, I feel like that's something important for me, is to start conversations that maybe people aren't having, or maybe people are just not thinking about things in the way that I'm thinking about things. So I want to just kind of go, why don't think about this? And then people will think about things in that way. This is Tam. He's been in the background of some videos, and he popped up in the last week's video. He's the big cat, the chunky cat, the Ginge. Yeah, thank you about my hair. I'm very happy with it at the moment. It's hay-like in its consistency, but it looks good on camera, and that's ultimately what matters most, isn't it? Do I have any projects up my sleeve? Yes. Have you changed since starting creating new videos, the new kind of videos on the channel? Yeah, so just to comment on that, you may have noticed, oh, my hair's got, I was just saying how much I liked it. Need to keep it. Come on, got to be something worth liking. Yeah, you might notice that the videos on the channel have changed sort of a little bit, sort of here and there. I've been adding new things in. I've been sort of playing around with a few more things, editing wise. And yeah, my intention is to make it a little bit more sort of artful, a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more interesting as we're going on. And definitely those changes are reflecting changes in me personally as well. Like, for me, over the last kind of year or two, I've been gradually coming to get to know myself better, sort of accept myself on a deeper level. Hey, Marina. Welcome. Yeah, I've been starting to sort of accept myself and get to know myself better in terms of my queerness. And I think through, sort of becoming an atheist years back and making sense of a lot of the experiences I had before that were sort of impacted by, I think, in a way, making YouTube videos, like making videos and rendering my thoughts into sort of a video format has definitely had an effect on me as a person. And then that sort of fed back into making videos, if that makes sense. So sitting there and rendering your thoughts into a script and then into a video, and then editing it and sort of picking it through and looking at yourself and like noticing your mannerisms, noticing the words you use more often, noticing all these kinds of things. And then watching it back and seeing everybody's responses in real time and reading through the comments, many of which, I mean, it's just a cesspit, isn't it? Sometimes the comment section on YouTube, I'm sure that's not controversial to say that, but yeah, it does have an effect, and I think that sort of feeds back into the video. I think one thing that I have taken from Kate Bornstein, however that's pronounced, book, Gender Outlaw, is that there's something in queerness where if you make a joke first, if you make the joke first, then you've beaten the bullies to the punch. in a way. So I think there's sort of that gentle sort of lampooning of myself, which I'm more comfortable doing on the channel now, not just because I'm less self-conscious, I think, through doing YouTube videos and stuff, but also because I know if I'm making the joke, then I've made the joke. And if people are going to try and pull me up on shit, then I don't care because I've already found it funny. So Sazkaz says, I wonder if Teal or anyone else you've discussed has ever tried to take your videos down. Thankfully, no. And I don't know if that's just because they see them as potentially like additional, you know, marketing, if you like, you know, or any press is good press sort of an attitude, or whether they just, you know, I would imagine that they're aware of them, you know, to some extent. But yeah, no, thankfully they haven't tried to take them down. And I feel like maybe I would hope that the attitude that I'm approaching the things with is part of that. Because although I do poke fun, although I do make jokes, I do find that I'm just noticing a little loop in the back of my hair that's winding me up. Yeah. What's that? It's just come up. The alias you set this command to be of Twitter does not exist. That looks like that's a problem I've created with Nightbot there. Sorry about that. But yeah, I hope that to some extent the attitude I bring to it makes people feel like it's something they don't want to try and take down. But like you say there, Sazkaz, yeah, we know Teal can't stand critics. I mean, it does seem to be the case that Teal doesn't like it when people disagree with her in this kind of a way, and or call her out on stuff. You know, my impression, it's the impression I get anyway. But yeah, yeah. So let's have another question that's coming here through from Twitter. Actually, no, this one's coming from Facebook. This one. Could you speak on the relationship between undue influence and not having a solid support system, and why it can be so seductive to follow a person who is shoveling out the undue influence? I think, yeah, I can definitely speak on that. Although obviously, as with any time I talk about this kind of stuff, I always want to be super clear, not an expert, just, you know, done some reading on this and I'm interested in it and have some personal experience with it, but please make up your own mind, do your own research. When it comes to undue influence and having a support system in your life in place, I think one of the interesting things about undue influence is that while it seems that it's definitely possible for it to more easily take hold when you don't have that system in place, having that system in place doesn't necessarily stop undue influence from taking hold. I think it really just comes down to where you're at in your mind, where you're at in your life at the moment that a cult recruiter or you know, a leader or, you know, a YouTube video even that you come across can affect you. I think are we still connected? Let me just make sure the Wi-Fi is off on my phone so I don't lose anything here. But yeah, I really feel like when it comes down to support systems and undue influence, it's not necessarily a tentative measure to have a support system in your life, but it definitely would help, I would say. But I think one of the things about undue influence, about cults in general, about this kind of destructive, it begins to establish itself in your life, in your mind. It isolates you in a way. It sort of, the effect of it is that it can cause you to withdraw from your support system, withdraw from family and friends and so on and so forth, because they're out group members now, you know, on the in-group. They don't understand, they don't see the truth, and all these kinds of things that you hear in various forms from, you know, destructive groups and zealous gatherings of people, cults, you know. So yeah, I feel like having a support system definitely helps, but in my opinion, the thing that helps most when it comes to avoiding undue influence is going to be critical thinking, skepticism, and having that developed as a skill. We think of skepticism and critical thinking as, hey, Veronica, welcome. We think of skepticism and critical thinking as like a trait, something that some people have and some people don't, or some people are prone to, or comes naturally to some people and doesn't to others. And that may be the case, that it does come naturally to some people. Nightbot is getting sensitive. Sorry about that. Yeah, while it may come naturally to some people and not others, I really feel like skepticism and critical thinking is a skill that we need to hone. It's something that we should practice often, and something that we should. In my mind, I use it as a sort of framework to determine whether or not something's worth investigating further, and if it doesn't stand up to some initial scrutiny for me, then I feel fairly confident in setting it aside. But I also know that, you know, we are limited in the ways that the things that might come to us when we're being skeptical initially, when we're thinking critically initially. We might miss something, we might overlook something. Various biases and cognitive distortions do play a part in that. So yeah, I think is a really valuable thing when it comes to undue influence. It's a really valuable thing when it comes to trying to keep ourselves and others safe from undue influence, but it really is something that we need to develop as a skill, I would say, personally. Yeah. So, I've just seen Mark said there in the chat, help Andy Fellows continue to make all their excellent content by becoming a patron, as YouTube have demonetized the channel at the moment by visiting. So yeah, thank you, Mark, for sharing that. So just an update on the monetization thing. I mean, trying to get that sorted with YouTube. I've been emailing their support and trying to get some things done. They've temporarily monetized my channel again, but as before, I'm still not actually getting any of the proceeds from that. So if you do enjoy the videos I'm making and you do want to support the channel, the absolute best way to do that is through Patreon, which Mark has linked there. So yeah, if you like what I'm doing, then go ahead and check that out. But I won't sit here and shill that 100 times while we're here. I just wanted to comment on the monetization thing. What do you know of the Butterfield cult or the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and would you ever do a video on them? I don't know enough about them to do a video on them. And the reason I say that is that I would need to know enough about them and to be familiar enough with their sort of point of view. Thank you, Sazkaz. I really appreciate that. Honestly, even the lowest tier makes a difference. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, with Butterfield and the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is that what you said? Yeah, I don't know enough about them to say like anything that anyone else isn't saying, and in that sense I probably wouldn't make a video about them. I believe the Butterfield cult is the subject of the Holy Hell documentary, which we watched on Netflix, which is worth a watch, very interesting. And obviously there's former Mormons and people who know more about Mormons, or I believe that is what the Fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints is. It might be a different thing, but yeah, there's people who are former Mormons who do talk about Latter-day Saints stuff on YouTube already, and I don't know that I'd be able to add too much to that conversation, so I haven't so far. So okay, so I think we've got some sort of fun, silly questions, which I believe Mark sent through, interspersed with some other sort of more cult theme sort of questions. So I'm going to sort of chop and change. But as we're going through this, and we're about 25 minutes here, I'm sort of planning to run for about an hour with this. So if you do have any other, literally, like Nightbot is freaking out with what I asked it to send. It's literally devoid of usage. It's devoid of purpose, Nightbot. All it's doing is trying to tell people not to say things. I will have to spend more time trying to get Nightbot working for future lives. But yeah, I'm planning on running for about an hour here. We're about 25 minutes through right now. So if you have any questions that you want me to answer, send them through in the chat, and I'll get to them as and when I see them coming through. I get a little bit of a delay here through StreamYard, but yeah. In the meantime, I will answer questions that have been sent through from Twitter and Facebook. So, would you pick being world-class attractive, a genius, or famous doing something great? Probably genius. I feel like that would be more worthwhile, and I feel like the genius thing would also mean that I could get famous doing something great, although I don't necessarily value fame as anything more than a vehicle to do something with, to affect change in the world. So I think genius on that one. Yeah, definitely. What do you know of Jesus Army, and do you think that the cult has really gone or been driven underground? I don't even know if it's a cult. I haven't done enough research on the Jesus Army to say whether I think it's a cult or not. All I know about the Jesus Army is that they had a center in my hometown. So when I was growing up, I was aware of the Jesus Army group, I guess, and they were always out and about trying to recruit people. And trying to, I believe they did something for the homeless. And if I remember rightly, they brought the homeless in and then tried to convert them. So they were like, here, let me help you. And then they were like, have some faith, please. Now, I don't know if that's the case. That's my own, based on my own experiences and probably very faulty memory. Philippe said, anytime the word army, anytime the word army is worrisome for me, that I feel that the general point of that I can agree with. Yeah, the word army being used to describe a group is certainly worrying. Yeah, when it's a religious organization, absolutely. Hey Donna, welcome, and also Philippe, Gabrielle, welcome as well. Thank you for joining. Feel free to send any questions you might have in the chats, and thank you, Donna. I'm happy with the hair. It's looking good, isn't it? Yeah, send any questions you've got in the chat. We will. I will answer them as and when I see them. There's a little bit of a delay, but I'll answer them as and when I see them. If you could have a conversation with any one of our world leaders, who would it be and why? I thought about this when I was copying them into my document, and I feel like maybe the New Zealand Prime Minister, because I feel like I'd like to understand her point of view with governing a little bit. You know, I feel like there are other world leaders that, although I'm interested in why they are the way they are, I don't know if sitting down and having a conversation with them could answer any questions I have to a satisfactory degree. But definitely the Prime Minister of New Zealand would be very interesting to listen to. I feel like how she handled the pandemic, from what I've heard and seen, has been pretty good. And as far as I don't know what it's like inside New Zealand for the Kiwis, but she seems to be generally well regarded. So, and that's not common these days. That's not easily done these days. So I'd like to understand her point of view a little bit more. Hey, Julie, welcome. Have I had a Weetabix yet? Donna's asked. No, I haven't, because I haven't got them here in Mexico. So I'll probably have to order them like over the internet or something, which would cost an arm and a leg. So while I have continued to speak to my family members about the taste of Weetabix, just to remind myself, and was reminiscing the other day with my grandparents about having warm milk on some Weetabix with a little bit of sugar. No, I haven't had any, unfortunately. Yeah. So let's have another question. If anyone's got any questions, as I say, drop them in the chat. I'll jump to them as and when I see them. If you could have a conversation with any one of our... Oh, no, I've done that one. If you could morph 2 animals to make one super animal, what 2 animals would you choose and why? Now, so initially the animals in Avatar: The Last Airbender come to mind, and they're pretty cool animals. I don't know what animals I'd combine. I don't know. What animals are there? When I was growing up, I always loved the eye. You know, that really like fucking weird animal. It's like that. I'd I always like that animal. So I put an eye with pangolin. Make an eye pangolin. Or a pangolai. Why is the name's funnier than the thought of the creature to me? If I had the ability to do magic like a characters from Harry Potter's, what would I use? How would I use it? I would travel around. I'd visit my family often. I'd do the, what's it called with the smoke? What's it called with the flume thing where they go through the chimneys? I'd do that. Or like, no, that's the rough one, isn't it? The apparition thing where they use a spell and they just kaleidoscope to different places. I'd do that. I'd visit my family. I'd visit my friends. I'd probably go and see some places. Maybe, yeah. I'd also use that magic to maybe cure some virus. Would be quite good if that was possible, or at least like shield, at the very least, shield myself and my loved ones from each other while we're in the same place to like stop the virus spreading. But if I could do more, if I was a particularly powerful magical person, then I would try and do some more with the virus. Flu powder, that's the one. Yeah, that one, or the apparition thing. Yeah. So let me find another question. In libraries, do they put the Bible in the fiction or the non-fiction? If you ask me, it should probably go in sort of non-fiction history. No, fiction history. I don't know, because it's a bit of both, isn't it? So there's some, I guess there's some historical stuff in there, but then there's some historical stuff in fiction books. So put in the fiction. Historical fiction, historical fantasy. That'll piss someone off. What secret conspiracy would I like to start? Oh, actually, I'll come back to that. I've seen some people have sent some questions in the chat. So let's have a look at, do you have a routine to keep your motivation running properly every day? Right now, I'm reading The End of Faith from Sam Harris. Pretty interesting. Still keep my eyes very open. Do I have a routine to keep myself motivated? Not really. I just kind of, if I don't feel motivated, then I just reorganize. I'm quite fortunate in that the work that I do is sort of flexible. So what I tend to do is sort of, if I feel unmotivated, then I'll just sort of reorganize my week a little bit if I need to. Thankfully, I'm able to do that. But otherwise, just keep my time on social media to a minimum, because that does great. And yeah, I listen to music, talk to people I like, that kind of stuff. Have good conversations with Rosa. We talk a lot about lots of different things, and that helps to sort of think differently. Listen to books as well, all those kinds of things. I'm always trying to like learn new stuff and keep my mind open to new ideas and things. So yeah, how has Mexico handled the pandemic? Julie's asked that. Initially with denial, then with belated measures, government-wise, denial, belated measures, and then just the sort of regular capitalist response of just trying to open things up again as soon as possible. There was a curfew in effect at one point, so people had to be in by 6 p.m. All these kinds of things were happening. It's not been terrible, but it's not been ace, honestly. The thing that's concerned me most is not necessarily the government's response, which has been, although somewhat lackluster in my opinion, a bare minimum. My concern has been the people that seem to have just, and anyone who follows me on Twitter knows that this has been a bit of a gripe of mine. I feel like it's a lot of people's gripe at the moment. But just sort of people who are just acting like it's over now and things are fine, and let's just act like this isn't ended and this is ended and we can all go back to normal. It's like, no, it's not ended. This is still very much ongoing. Yeah. So how has Mexico handled it? Better than America, which is a pretty low bar. But at this point, I feel like it's the people more than the government that's stopping things going back to normal, in the sense that, oh, look, sorry, Nightbot has just actually successfully shared something. Amazing. But yeah, so yeah, it's handled it iffy. At the moment, while the government seems to be trying to get things, and in fact, I don't know what the government's doing at the moment. I've not been keeping up to that. The people seem to have been trying to go back to normal, which is not great. Yeah. So what else we got? Question from Monica: did the cult impact your life, and at what point did you realize your path was different? How did it impact my life? I've talked about that a bit on the channel, so I'll try not to sort of tread the same ground again, but there are a few videos like how the cult changed me, which I did relatively recently, which has sort of covered that a little bit. But how did experience impact my life? I feel like, I mean, I wouldn't be doing this now if not for that experience in that maybe not in exactly the same way. I've sort of come on and off of YouTube over the years anyway, but I wouldn't be doing this now if not for that. Because it's given me an experience that has informed a perspective that I feel maybe worthwhile sharing. That's sort of my intention with the channel, as I said earlier. Yeah, it's impacted my life in that it has given me, in a way, I feel like it's deepened my understanding of a lot of things, but that's in spite of it. Not to say that the cult and the teachings or anything definitely did that. Not really. I mean, that's caused more trouble than anything for me. But having had the experience of going through that, having had my thinking and everything sort of be taken over in that way, and my whole worldview arrested by it, it's definitely given me, I feel like it's deepened my experience as a human, and it's enabled me to think differently in a way. So in that sense, it's definitely had a positive impact. But I'm really careful not to, because there is this thing that I see in the comments a lot where people are like, well, you know, it's benefited you in some way, and I'm like, yeah, but it's still a cult. It's still, like, for me at least, it still had a negative effect on me. It still has left me with a lot to process and a lot to overcome, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say it was a good thing. But yeah, at which point did you realize your path was different? If that means what I think it means, the point I realized the cult wasn't for me was the point I realized it was having a negative effect on my life, and it was actually causing my mental health to deteriorate, as far as I could tell. And then I started to question it, and I started to think differently. And that wasn't the end of my spirituality or my interest in the New Age by a long stretch. But it started a gradual unpicking of my beliefs and my thinking, to the point where I ended up atheist. And that's not the end either. You know, we're always learning and growing and coming to new ideas and new points of view. But yeah, the Bible is bad nonfiction. I mean, it's not well written, although I'm sure at the time it was pretty good for what it was. Do you think Ralph Smart was correct when he proclaimed that he predicted the pandemic for 2020? I would say probably not. But I haven't watched enough of his videos. I don't watch all of his videos. When I'm making a video about him, I'll watch some of his videos to sort of get a feel for where he is. But yeah, I don't think that he was correct. Just because if he was correct, he wasn't correct for supernatural reasons. I don't think he would have been correct for, like, he was listening to sort of epidemiologists who were saying that it might happen like a decade ago. Do you know what I mean? And I don't imagine that he's listening to those kinds of people, given that the kind of people he seems to be listening to are like Dr. Stella Immanuel, who has notoriously said some pretty wacky things. So yeah, I don't necessarily think so, but I am open to being wrong on that. Yeah. And as Philippe said there, yeah, I mean, as far as I'm aware, pandemics do sort of come around of this nature, sort of cyclically. You know, if you look back 100 years to 1918, there was a pretty big flu situation. Is that an understatement? Probably is. Yeah. So hey, purple rhymes with orange. Welcome. Key, welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you've got any questions, drop them in the chat. I'm seeing a conversation erupt in there, which I'm not going to dive into because I don't want to sit here and just read and be distracted. But if you do have any questions for me, feel free to send them. Let's answer another question that I was sent on Twitter. If someone made a movie of your life, would it be drama, comedy, romantic comedy, action film, or science fiction? And who would play you? I feel like it would be sort of like dramedy with an element of sort of psychological thriller, probably. But dramedy definitely would be the main genre, because like I feel like if you ask my dad, he would say that I've always been able to laugh at myself, which definitely helped the channel and helped me to be here making videos. But that doesn't mean that I haven't had my share of shit things to have got through. So, you know, probably dramedy. Philippe said we only get a pandemic like this every couple of decades. We should be able to take it. I don't know. I haven't seen any stats on that, but I do think that we could have handled it better if we had more competent leaders, honestly. But we just don't. We're in a phase at the moment where we have very incompetent leaders, and in those leaders failing, and in us failing to lead ourselves with evidence-based opinions, we sort of ended up in a bit of a pickle. But yeah, Marina, I have a question. I'm genuinely wondering if you think Eckhart Tolle is a cult leader. I don't, honestly, although I could be wrong. I don't think that he's a cult leader. Yeah, he's definitely a spiritual leader. He's definitely someone who is stating opinion as fact, perhaps, or at least his own personal experience as fact. But yeah, I don't think he's a cult leader necessarily. I could be wrong, but from what I know, and I did used to sort of listen to him a bit and sort of follow some of what he said. So yeah. So I have we have Rebecca from Honeyback has asked, are you really an atheist? Yeah, I am. I'd be interested where that sort of question has come from you, Rebecca. Like, is that like, you don't believe atheists exist? You don't believe I'm really an atheist? Why don't? Please follow that up with additional questions, because I'm interested. Yeah, Philippe. Yeah, he does seem to be. He's coming from a different background. He's teaching. He's very much in the New Age sort of thing. He's bringing sort of Eastern philosophy and Eastern religious ideas over. But again, he's not the only one doing that, and that's certainly not new or unique to Eckhart Tolle. But you know, Marina, with any leader, I think it's important to. I'm coming from a different spirit background from Christianity. I wasn't raised Christian. No, I wasn't really raised with any religion, and so it didn't set in early. But yeah, I think with any spiritual leader, spiritual teacher, anything like that, scrutiny is important, and critical thinking and skepticism is important. So if someone is like Eckhart Tolle or anybody is saying things and they're saying them as truth, sort of boldly, then I would question their ideas a little bit. Thank you, Sarah, for clarifying those pronouns. Put that on the screen for a minute. I didn't want to get snagged up on that right now, but I'm really grateful for you saying that. Yes, I use they them pronouns. Yeah, with any it's all right, Philippe. Happens to the best of us. Yeah, with any leader, I think scrutiny is important, and if people are saying things as fact and they're not allowing those things to be questioned, or those things don't stand up, then I think we should definitely maybe take a step back and consider things a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's always about the power structure when it comes to cults, power structure, and whether or not the ideas they're suggesting are in any way totalistic or leaning towards totalism. And there's a number of books available on that, which if you're in a bunch of books to do with that, if you want to read a bit more about it. But yeah. Pamela has said, and by the way, we're sort of 15 minutes now away from the end of this. For patrons, I'm going to be jumping over after this. After a few minutes, I'm going to be jumping over to the Patreon only live, which I do monthly exclusively for patrons. So I'm going to be jumping over to that in about 15 minutes or so. So if you're a patron, you want to sort of have a little chat, we'll talk a bit about the videos from the month, and obviously monthly book recommendations will be shared there as normal. So yeah, if you're a patron, you want to join that. In about 15 minutes, I'll be ending this live and jumping over into that one. To get the link for that, you just go into the Patreon feed, and it should be there under the link for this one in a recent post I put there. But yeah, so Pamela has said, oh, that's not Pamela, sorry, Marina, I'll get to you in a second. The thing moved along. Pamela said, I just watched another Comedy Ralph video, and yes, more bullshit. He's the chosen one standing outside this flat among the windy trees. I mean, I've heard Ralph's been saying a few things recently that are a bit more sort of concerning. Maybe I've heard he's been saying a few more wild things, which if I do another video on him, I'll definitely be revisiting this period in his video history to see whether there's anything worth talking about. But yeah, so Marina, I remember you explaining your situation when your friend on Facebook commented, sounds like a cult, mate. I got the same type of comment when a friend of mine on Facebook was into him. Yeah, I mean, my friend was right. Maybe yours is, maybe yours isn't. I don't know. From my point of view, from what I understand of Eckhart Tolle, I don't think that it is a cult, but it's certainly, there's a lot of ethereal sort of, all these kinds of things, which ethereal ideas tend to set the stage quite often for cults to emerge. So there is that possibility. Yeah, Eckhart Tolle may be cultish, it may be cult-like, maybe not a cult in terms of its in a power structure or group dynamic, but maybe. Yeah. So let me just check through here. We've got any questions coming through. I've asked you about atheism. I've asked you before about atheism, and you said yes. And I'd like to hear your elaboration on the subject. It's inspiring to me. Yeah, I mean, atheism's a tricky one, because I know there are people who have a lot to say about atheism and can, sort of wax on it for hours, but I don't really have much to say on it. I mean, if there's questions people have specifically that they want to ask, then I will answer them. But yeah, I feel like atheism for me is sort of the baseline from which I engage with ideas and things. But I don't necessarily have too much to say on it other than that, really. I mean, if you have questions specifically, I'll answer them. Morgani one has said, my professor also believes in an exclusively materialistic worldview. There are no alternative discussions at the university. Is he also a cult leader? I would have to know more to say that. Within the professor's classroom, given that you're able to leave, you're able to question things, and there's other things going on there. Additionally to that, those are the things that people tend to think about when you think of cults. And can you leave? And Are there any consequences for leaving and all that kind of thing? I don't know. Atheist cults can exist. Just sort of speaking more broadly than that specific example. An idea, an ideology, a belief structure doesn't make the cult. The relationship dynamics within the group make the cult. The way that a leader treats their followers makes the cult. And you can have abusive situations which aren't cult-like or cults. You can have unhealthy groups which may be unhealthy but maybe aren't cults. But I feel like that's an arbitrary distinction that a lot of people will have to make for themselves in a sense. But yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know about your professor. I'd have to have more information on that. Leo Gura, Key said Leo Gura is a total cult. I have heard as much. The videos that I've seen are very long and yeah, pretty heavy. I if I had more time to dive into them, I would have made a video by now. But it's actually probably and Cycle of Growth has said here. I was going to ask about Leo Gura. I got really into his stuff for a while and thankfully quit watching. Still trying to recover from my thinking. Yeah, I've heard similar things from a lot of people, and I would make videos, or at least a video on actualize.org and Leo Gura probably if I had more time to devote to actually researching the videos and stuff. But they're so long and they're so, I feel like I need to know a lot more than I know about them, having just watched 1 or 2 or 3 videos, in order to have an opinion on them, which on him, on the whole thing, which would be worthwhile me sharing and would also add something to the conversation and all the kind of things that I for myself need to think about, you know, to be aware of in making a video on anything. So I would like to do more research. So I mean, people have sent me a lot of videos on Leo Gura. I've had a few people send me specific videos that they think are concerning or worth looking at. I'm always open to that if that's worthwhile to you. Honestly, timestamps would be really helpful as well because of how long the videos are, and a number of reasons that the length of the video is part of why I haven't the length of the videos is why I haven't done them yet. But yeah, so if you do have any specific videos that you think you'd like me to have a look at, then yeah, just go ahead and feel free to send me those along. Send me timestamps as well. Purple Rhymes with Orange has said biggest thing about cults is how resistant are they to you walking away, and will they come after you? That's definitely one of the biggest fears that people have in leaving a cult. I would say, in terms of defining a cult and determining what is a cult and what isn't, that's part of it, but not all of it. But certainly, as someone who sort of used to be involved in the Teal thing and has sort of stepped away from it, retribution and the consequences for speaking out has definitely been something that's been on my mind more than a few times. And that's not just because of the comment section. Yeah, I've just realized what I did wrong with Nightbot now. But you'll see it's sort of throughout this live. It's been saying Patreon and all these kinds of things. If you want to access those links, they are all in the description as ever. Or they should be. Hopefully they are. Yeah, I can't see that at the moment. I'll check in a minute. But yeah, so let's see. So Purple's just said there, appreciate your work in helping people understand what a cult is and how dangerous they can be. Yeah, I feel like cults and how narcissism is adjacent to cults, and the sort of commonplace toxicity of cult leaders in everyday settings. Thank you, Mark, for sharing those links out. Yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Andy the Fellow. Just make sure you spell Andy with an E, like in my channel name. I'm on there. Out of all my social media, I'm on Twitter more than anything. But I feel like cults and the narcissism that's adjacent with cults, and the sort of commonplace toxicity that cult leaders exhibit, which is present within society and isn't necessarily just limited to cults, but definitely one of the more extreme forms of that manifesting in life is through cults. I feel like it's one of those things that happens, we write off, we sort of explain away, but reasonably we could be more aware of it, and I think should be more aware of it. So yeah. So I've got a few more things people are coming through. Any last questions, please send them through now, as I will be jumping into the Patreon only portion of this live in about 5 or so minutes. As I say, if you're a patron, you can actually grab the access link to that in the Patreon feed, in the posts there. So I think the most recent post I've put up. Somebody asked, do I believe vaccine will insert a microchip into us, turn us into cyborgs like Ralph Fart does? Ralph Fart. Brilliant. Do I think? I don't think that, no. And there's no evidence for anybody trying to do that at the moment. You know, the ID 2020 thing and all of that sort of historically doesn't actually it doesn't actually have any evidence to support that they're trying to microchip anybody or putting us in a RoboCop suit or anything like that. Yeah, no, there's no real evidence to support that. And actually, when I talked about that in the Ralph Smart video, I put the link to a Snopes article that I found on that in the description as well. Snopes is very good for debunking things. So I'm sure everybody's pretty aware of Snopes at this point. So what we got here, bless you, Andy. PS, love your dialect. Thank you, Rebecca, appreciate that. Yeah, Mark's just shared a link to the Facebook group that I, along with a few others, run. I guess it's my group, and then I have a few really wonderful people moderating it. Shout out to my Facebook mods, you are awesome. Yeah, if you want to join the Facebook group, if you're on Facebook, you can go ahead and do that. I'm in there. I think Twitter I'm on most, and then the Facebook group is where I am probably second most. So if you wanna connect on there, I'm happy to do that. So what else have we got here? Any other questions? I'm sort of sifting through a lot of conspiracy related comments. Oh, have I ever worked with Telltale? Yeah, actually, I did a video. Well, I was on Telltale's channel talking about my experience with Teal a few months back. Actually, there's a playlist on my channel. If you go to, I think it's like Andy on other channels or something like that. On there, I've popped up with Telltale, and also Telltale used my byte model analysis on Teal Tribe and Teal Swan. That was one of the things I believe that informed his byte model breakdown on Teal for his videos on Teal. So, you know, we are in touch. I would like to do more with Telltale if he's ever open to it. But yeah, I've done that little bit. I don't know if that counts as working with Telltale or just sort of being on his channel at one point. But yeah, Marina's asking what my Facebook group is. Mark, do you have the Facebook group link you can drop again for Marina to find? Yeah, so we're sort of coming to the end now. So let me take one more question from Twitter before. What if we told Karens that masks protected against 5G? Would they start wearing them? I feel like that goes in nicely to some of the conspiracy stuff. I don't know why that comment was up on the screen just then. Weird. Yeah, that feeds into the conspiracy stuff. Would Karens start wearing masks if we told them they're protected against 5G? No, they wouldn't. It's a false flag. So yeah, I think that about wraps up this live, doesn't it? So if you're a patron, grab the link for the patron only live, which I'll be jumping into in a few minutes, from the from the Patreon feed. If you want to join the Facebook group, if you want to follow me on Twitter, any of those links are in the description below. And also Mark's been sharing them here, which is fantastic. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, and if you're enjoying the content I'm making, you want to help support the channel, the best way to do that is through Patreon. As I say, my channel at the moment, I'm not getting any of the proceeds for its monetization. So if you want to support financially in that way, then you can do that through Patreon. I'm really grateful for that. Any and all contributions are gratefully received and make a huge difference. So that said, thank you all for being here. Thank you for your wonderful questions. Thank you for supporting the channel and subscribing and being here as part of the 4,000 subscribers that are here on the channel. And yeah, I guess I will say, please be kind. I got to do this thing. I've been doing that. Please be kind and ask your questions, and I'll see you in the next one.